Hey, so I just finished listening through the audiobook of The Dawn of Everything by David Graeber and David Wengrow. I got it right here. You can see it's on the end credits, and I'm not going to bother listening through the end credits because there's no real purpose for that. But yeah, I listened through the whole thing. I started listening to it on July 27th, actually. So it's been about 2 weeks, almost. Um, so, The Dawn of Everything is essentially two leftists coming to terms with the fact that there was never a truly egalitarian society. And they provide a lot of evidence discussing this. Some of the evidence they provide is anthropological, some of it is archaeological, some of it is simply logical, some of it is historical. So there's a couple of different fields that are being used here. So talking about some of the anthropology, they talk about how different societies that have been labeled egalitarian actually have chieftains, which is a hierarchical structure, uh, and they have an elder system. They talk about how some of these cultures that are claimed to be egalitarian are only egalitarian for part of the year and spend another part of the year with a hierarchy. Now, what is politics? In his series on the Dawn of Everything, he brought up this last point and how they got one of their points wrong because they cited Claude Levi-Strauss. And Claude Levi-Strauss was wrong about one of these flip-flopping societies because he just happened to go there at a time when they were about to have their big hunt. And so things were different for the hunt, but the rest of the year they were egalitarian and the same. So it wasn't really so much that there was a flip-flop in that regard. It was just that they had more people together, and so things operated a little differently at that time. So what is politics brought up that point, and Claude Levi-Strauss actually eventually did admit that he was wrong about that, if I recall correctly. So, but just having one wrong example does not negate the numerous other examples. So in terms of archaeology, they actually refer to the archaeology of Paleolithic cultures and Neolithic cultures that built massive sites. And they talk about how the very construction of these sites indicates a hierarchical structure. You can't build these orderly systems without some sort of hierarchy. So there was probably hierarchy, very likely hierarchy, in Paleolithic times. Historically, they bring up the Romans and the encounters of indigenous tribes with the Europeans. And the Europeans were who called these cultures egalitarian were using their own hierarchical lens to analyze these cultures. They These cultures were more egalitarian than the Europeans were, coming from like monarchy and stuff like that, monarchy and aristocracy. More egalitarian than that, but that does not mean they were truly egalitarian. And they also bring up the Romans and how the Romans encountered some tribes and some of the practices by the Romans that were hierarchical. Of course, we know the Romans were hierarchical. But the the tribes encountered by the Romans were hierarchical as well. So even in Europe, Europeans were hierarchical. The Native Americans were hierarchical. The East Asians were hierarchical. The Paleolithic peoples were hierarchical. Everywhere was hierarchical all the time. They have a chapter in the book that's actually pretty interesting. It's about how the state has no origin. What that really means is that something akin to a state has always existed, regardless of where you look or what time you look at. So the idea that you can that freedom existed before the state is simply not true. You always had something like a state, and it may have served the needs of the people. It may have allowed for more freedom at certain points in time, but there has always been a state. And this is actually pretty troublesome for a couple of anarchists. David Graeber and Wengrow were both anarchists. Graeber, of course, is dead now, and Wengrow has been pushing the work forward. But all in all, I would say this was a pretty good book, pretty interesting book. Not the best book I've ever read, but it was a pretty good book. That's about all. Thank you for watching. Peace.